It'll make you laugh. It'll upset you. But most importantly, it'll make you think. This is Dogma Debate with David Smalley.
Today is Wednesday, February 10th, 2016. This is Dogma Debate. I'm your host, David Smalley. Today's show, I'm going to go ahead and warn you right now. There's going to be some controversy because we're going to apply skepticism universally. And that's not always very popular. And I promise you today, here's the one promise I will make to you today. I will apply skepticism universally even when you don't like it. Okay, that's just the way it's going to happen. And I know it's so hard when emotions flare and things get up and you say, you know what, this topic right here is so important to me. I lock into my emotions and I want to fight about it. Well, I'm asking you to remain skeptical even when you're upset, even when things bother you. Let's think about things rationally. Oh, that's a scary thing. I understand. Everyone thinks there's a skeptic until their nerves and emotions are involved. And then, a lot of times skepticism goes out the window. And I could be a part of that too. I'm not saying that I'm perfect, but I will say I'm damn close to it. Right, Alex? How are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm gonna hold you to it too.
We shall see. We shall see if that's the case. That's what I get for unmuting you. So today's show, social justice. What is the regressive left? Is that really a thing? Can we talk about what that means? And feminism. Okay, that's a lot to unpack in one show. And I promise you, Alicia, our public relations director, already cringing from the emails she's going to get. That's already happening. Social Justice Warriors, the regressive left, feminism. We're going to talk about. We're going to parse this out. Eli Bosnik is joining us, and we're going to talk about safe spaces. We're going to talk about trigger warnings and privilege. We're going to talk about Black Lives Matter. Does the Black Lives Matter movement go too far, or is how far they go necessary? We're going to talk about atheism and feminism, the nature of satire, online culture of disagreements, Dawkins, transphobia within a secular movement. This is going to be a heavy, heavy program. So strap in. This is going to be a lot of fun. I need to do this here for you. Next time you hear that, just do that.
Okay.
We're good. Live producing on the air. So before we get into all of this stuff, we haven't had an update. We have had updates from Secular Coalition for America quite frequently. But, Kelly hasn't joined us in a while. So join me and welcome Kelly Demeraux to the show. Hello, Kelly. How are you?
Hi. Glad to be back.
I got to tell you, I miss you.
Aw.
We do. We miss having you on. Don't get me wrong. Casey's great and all. But we love having you on. How have you been?
I've been good. It's nice to feel missed.
Aw. Okay, so give us a quick update. What's going on with Secular Coalition for America?
Well, obviously we got lots going on with the election. So yesterday in New Hampshire, they were the second state to weigh in on the 2016 presidential race. On the Republican side, of course, Donald Trump finished well ahead of his closest competitor, getting 35.3% of the vote. But it's the Democratic race that actually made history. So with 60.4% of the vote there, Bernie Sanders actually became the first non-Christian to ever win a presidential primary.
Whoa, that's a big one. That's huge.
This is history, and it's great for us, and even better, it's got the religious right shaken in their boots, because two predictions that the Secular Coalition's been making for years now are starting to come true. The first being that non-religious or even an atheist candidate could be electable.
I love that concept. Absolutely love that concept.
And everyone said it couldn't be done, and then we're scared to try, and now it's looking like, maybe it's not such a big problem after all. And then on the other side of the voting booth, that nuns, and particularly the non-believers segment of those nuns, that they're a voting bloc and that they deserve the attention and the respect of candidates that actually want to win the White House.
That's something, Dave Silverman and I love to come on our shows together and talk about all the things we disagree on, but we always end with talking about the things we do agree on. And that's one thing I love having him on for is he talks about being a conservative himself, along with Jamila Bay, folks like that. They're atheists, they're non-believers, they're part of the nuns, but they are conservative. The one thing I love that he does when doing that is he does make the Republican Party at least acknowledge his existence and go, okay, we do need to pay attention to secular Americans because some of them do agree with us financially. Some of them do agree with us on a foreign policy basis. So what we're forcing him to do is sort of pluck out the religious undertones that seem to go along with conservatism in general.
Right, and that strategy is not working for them in the past couple of elections, and it's definitely not going to work as we become a less and less religious nation. I think about 15% or so of the Republican Party right now is non-religious or none or unaffiliated or whatever term you want to use.
I didn't realize it was that high.
But they need that slice to win.
I didn't realize it was that high. I didn't realize it was 15% non-religious.
And it's growing, just like it's growing it's the largest segment it's the largest religious affiliation in the Democratic Party, but it's still a growing piece of the Republican Party. So they're going to have a little self-reflection moment if they want to win the White House this year. So coming up next on the campaign trail, we've got Democratic debate on PBS on Thursday, February 11th, and then a Republican debate over on CBS on Saturday, February 13th. But the next time voters go to the polls is going to be Saturday, February 20th. And there's a Democratic primary in Nevada, but then a Republican primary in South Carolina. So this being the first primary for the GOP in the South, we're prepared for an abundance of God talk from the Republican candidates. Well, at least those that are left standing at this point.
And I understand you also have some stuff to talk about to us with in regards to sex education.
Right. So remembering that there is still a current occupant of the White House, some good news coming from President Obama. Yesterday, the president released his 2017 budget. This is the final budget of his administration. And he took a strong lead in efforts to completely rid our country of abstinence-only sex education once and for all. So not only did he eliminate this $10 million federal funding for abstinence only, he included a legislative proposal to eliminate the state grant for abstinence-only sex education, and that's currently funded at $75 million. So this program, it's already been authorized by Congress, and this is the first time that the president eliminated it from his budget after Congress authorized it. And on top of that, the budget increases and extends funding for medically accurate, science-based sex education programs.
Oh, that is exactly what we wanted to happen. That's beautiful.
Right. So we're delighted, of course, with the president's leadership on this to finally put an end to these 3 decades and nearly $2 billion in federal spending that's been wasted on abstinence-only sex education, and that is commitment to sex education that actually educates. So we're really, it seems like such a small thing to ask for, but it's really a big deal that he's taking a stand on this. However, it is just the beginning of a months-long negotiation process with Congress because they ultimately control the purse strings.
Wow, you're just full of good news today.
Well, even better. So, this has been an issue near and dear to my heart, being a former educator, but it's one that's so important, and it hits really close to the core of those few things that we can all agree on, science and education, that the Secular Coalition, we're going to be partnering with the Reason Rally this year to hold a 2-day advocacy super event leading up to the Reason Rally. So we're going to be scheduling meetings with every single congressional office on Capitol Hill. It's 535 meetings advocating on this issue, on sex education, because, there's not a single shred of evidence that abstinence only works, and $2 billion wasted, and then not to mention the impact on the lives of those who didn't receive this necessary information and the impact it's going to have on them for generations. So we're really going to be taking this seriously, and this is going to be a big issue for 2016.
Awesome. And I know you guys are working really hard toward this Darwin Day resolution. Darwin Day is coming up. Talk to us a little bit about where we stand there.
So it's this Friday, February 12th. And, of course, it's a celebration of science, a recognition of the contributions of Charles Darwin on the anniversary of his birth. So the governors of Delaware and Virginia, thanks to the Secular Coalition for Virginia, they issued Darwin Day proclamations commemorating the day. However, this proclamation was rejected by governors in other states, including Michigan and Georgia. Georgia, they've issued 51 other proclamations in 2016 alone, so 51 proclamations, 41 days, making sure they're raising awareness about important issues like Dental Hygienist Day and recognizing the 7,000 dental hygienists of Georgia while ignoring the 400,000 atheists and agnostics of Georgia, including Mandisa Thomas, president of Black Nonbelievers, because apparently they don't rise to the same level of respect for Governor Deal there. It's sad that we're still fighting this, and I don't want to make it seem like I'm picking on dental hygienists.
It's totally their fault.
Apart from that,
you damn dental hygienists. It's all your fault.
Right. But it's okay. So Darwin Day, it's one of our big days that we celebrate, that we gather around, because it's recognizing, appreciating science, and this is about recognizing that science is still under attack in a lot of these states and in a lot of the classrooms in a lot of these states. So the trend of bills that are anti-evolution bills in the states, it hasn't been slowing down. In the past 10 years, 65 bills have been introduced to try to stop evolution education in the classroom, and they're coming from this same anti-science attack. But some of the good news on the federal level, just to switch to a happy note, the Darwin Day resolutions there have been introduced in the U.S. House 5 of the last 6 years, and we got our historic resolution introduced in the Senate for the first time ever last year, got it reintroduced this year, and every year more and more members of Congress are co-sponsoring these resolutions. And they're doing it because your listeners are calling them, writing them, emailing them, demanding that they get this kind of recognition. Over 3,000 people have already contacted their federal representatives about these resolutions. And if you haven't yet, you can visit secular.org. It's right there on the homepage. It says Take Action, and you can send an action alert to your federal legislator and ask them to please respect science, recognize this contribution to our everyday life, and co-sponsor the Darwin Day resolution. It's a really simple ask for them. There's no reason that they can't do this.
Do you think some of them, especially the ones on the religious right, see this as an attack on religion when all you're trying to do is, have people acknowledge Darwin and science?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They see it as coming after them. They see it as an attack. And it doesn't need to be. So we try to work with the different religious groups that understand that science doesn't necessarily mean the end of their beliefs, but science is important to all of us.
It very much is. Thank you so much, Kelly, for joining us today. We definitely appreciate it. Folks, go to secular.org, sign up for those email action alerts, and let's do our part to change the world. Thanks again, Kelly.
Thanks, David.
Speaking of Darwin Day, we do have a little book out featuring Mr. Charles Darwin, but not the old guy, not the guy the kids don't want to know about. It's not Professor Darwin. It's a young, vibrant, adventurous Darwin. It's called Charlie and the Tortoise. What are you looking at me like that for, Alex? My Chris Farley moved.
You're missing this on video. Yeah.
You don't have to. You can sign up at login@dogmadebate.com and get that video. But I'll tell you, this book is selling so well, and I love it. We're getting a lot of great feedback from it. Charlie and the Tortoise. It's available on Amazon. It's sold out within, I think, 5 to 6 days. I thought it was 4 days. It turns out it was about 6 days. It's sold out in 6 days for being released. So we're still placing orders. People are still able to place orders. We're getting it out as fast as we can. More books are being printed as we speak. So get in line. Go place your order at Amazon. We're so excited about that. This episode of Dogma Debate is brought to you by Pitchstone Publishing. Go to pitchstonepublishing.com. Check out everything they have. They are now the new happy owners of Atheist audiobooks, where there are tons and tons of choices. The two brands are merging together and making this huge library of audiobooks, as well as the secular books you've come to know and love by all your popular favorite artists. Check out Pitchstone Publishing. They're our new favorite publisher. They really are. They're just awesome over there. So check that out. Coming up next, we'll be here with Eli Bosnik, and the rest of this show is dedicated to social justice, safe spaces, trigger warnings, privilege, all kinds of things to make you and your family fight for the rest of the week. You ready to have some fun, Alex?
Oh, yeah. Embrace the uncomfort.
Me too. Let's get this started. More Dogma Debate coming up.
Okay, imagine you're walking down the street and you run into an old friend, and he looks radiantly happy. You ask him what's going on in his life, and he tells you that everything changed for him the day he realized that he was destined to marry Angelina Jolie. And it might occur to you, ask, why does he believe this? I mean, Angelina Jolie is, after all, one of the most beautiful and famous people on the planet. She's not incidentally married to Brad Pitt. They have something like 27 children at this point. Okay, what if your friend, sensing your skepticism, said, "You clearly don't understand. This belief gives my life meaning. Okay, I now know my purpose in life. It's to be Angelina's husband." What if your friend said that this belief has made me a better person? I'm now incredibly kind to children, anticipating having to raise Angelinas once Brad leaves. Or what if your friend said to you, "You can believe whatever you want, but I wouldn't want to live in a universe where I don't marry Angelina Jolie." It should be quite clear at this point that your friend has lost his mind. Okay, and it's probably a dangerous person, and yet this is precisely the kind of talk that so often passes for wisdom in religious circles and may attempt to pass for wisdom here.
Here's an excerpt from Disproving Christianity by David G. McAfee.
Each argument and contradiction presented will bring us closer to disproving the main pillars of Christianity, using nothing more than logical thinking, statistics, scientific and historical data, and Holy Scriptures. The debates between Christians and non-Christians have raged for thousands of years, and I expect the conflict to continue. But I do hope that these arguments will allow those Christians who may not have questioned biblical fallibility in the past to realize that these texts are man-made, and they represent the ideas of those fallible individuals who created and edited the compilation of texts now considered to be the Holy Bible. They contain errors, contradictions, and a stagnant moral code which, in many ways, no longer coincides with the morality of modern man. What I hope to gain from presenting these arguments and little-known biblical passages to the reader is a sense of understanding of Scripture which may not be presented in Bible study or in church, and for good reason. If read with an open mind, I truly believe that this book will open people's eyes to the wonders of free thought in a way that other works utilizing a more philosophical approach cannot.
Disproving Christianity and Other Secular Writings by David G. McAfee is now available at atheistaudiobooks.com.
You're listening to Dogma Debate with David Smalley.
Welcome back to Dogma Debate. Oh man, Donovan! If you're watching video, Donovan's our air drummer in the back. It's kind of weird looking,
and it's really bad.
It's terrible.
Awkward.
It's actually terrible.
But I so enjoy it.
Well, we better go ahead and get this started. And if you're not already signed up to get the entire show, I strongly suggest you do so at login.dogmadebate.com, because this thing will definitely continue into the extended show. If you don't listen live, if you're one of the folks that likes to download the show after the fact, you can actually download the entire show, including the extended show, with no commercials. If you sign up at login.dogmadebate.com, and the account's only $4 a month. So you're talking about $1 an episode. So, well worth it. Well worth it. I would strongly recommend doing that. And you can also, if you're a Plus member, you get streaming video inside the studio, all kinds of fun stuff. He's the co-host of the God Awful Movie podcast, Eli Bosnik, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, Eli. How are you, sir?
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Man, this is, I understand you've been wanting to talk to somebody for quite a while about all this juicy stuff, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, thanks. I forgot how hard your intro music rocks. So I just want to say I'm totally with Donovan because I was over on my end of Skype being like, so.
Well, let me ask you something, Eli, because every single person I've ever asked this question to on this show has not been able to answer to it. You could make history right now.
The Jews did 9/11.
No.
I got it. Is that it? Is that the question? It was the Jews.
All right. Well,
Still there?
Well, just for cognitive dissonance sake, here we go.
Yeah.
Let me do that for them. No, the question is, can you name that band that I just played?
Yes.
Who is it?
The Rolling Stones.
You are fired from ever coming on Dogma Debate again.
Oh, wow, I already lost. Wow.
Already
I didn't
lost.
even do any bad arguments.
No,
yet.
do you know who that band is?
No, who is that band?
I'm like 0 for 6 in this. That was Pantera.
I knew that.
You knew that because you've been here for all 6 quizzes.
Every time you've asked, we've been here.
Yeah, I'll be ready next time. Ask me next
Yeah.
time. Who's bragging over there? Hey, just so you know, I knew that. Thinking of a number between 1 and 10, I asked the last 12 people. They all got it wrong.
I think Alex and I are 5 out of 6 now.
Okay, well, look, just as I do for all debate-oriented discussions on this show, I want to give you an opportunity to present your case, talk about why you're coming on the show, why this is so important to you, and I'm going to give you the floor for a moment. Just you go ahead and tell me why you think this is such an important discussion we need to have.
Wonderful. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. The reason why I had reached out originally is because I was really disturbed and bothered by a lot of the language that I saw about social justice from secular leaders and from the atheist community, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to the point where I thought, there's nobody having a conversation about this. Everyone, I think that it's a hugely divisive point in atheism right now and in the atheist community about social justice and trigger warnings and safe spaces, all this kind of stuff. And there's a ton of misinformation out there. And the problem is the two sides of this issue are just not speaking to each other. So I reached out to a bunch of people who I consider on the opposite side of this issue of me, and I got absolutely no response. And these are people who I have relationships with, and that's important to point out. These are people who I had spoken to before, who I had had friendly interactions with before, not best friends by any means, but people who I definitely had gotten on either one of the shows that I'm on at some point, either Scathing Atheist, which I'm a frequent, contributor to, or GAM, or one of the other shows that I do, and nobody was willing to have a conversation about it. And instead, what I just hear is the same false, misinformed rhetoric over and over again. And the truth of the matter is, I think it has major consequences. And not just in the sense of like, we're going to get called names, or we're going to get this, or one side is yelling at the other side. I think what we're talking about right now, when we talk about social justice, and when we talk about trigger warnings and safe spaces and this new generation of PC culture, et cetera, is what the future of atheism is going to be. And we stand right now sort of on a precipice of whether or not we will fall into the pattern that every other generation has fallen into, which is we find the amount of change we want, and then we stop, and then we start to yell at the next generation because that was too much change and they're doing it weird and we don't like it. And if there's one movement that I think personally has hope to be above that pattern, it's the secular movement, it's the skeptic movement, it's the atheist movement. And I think a lot of it comes from not knowing a lot of terms. And one of the things I want to get into is, what is a safe space actually? How is it actually used? Not how do you read about it on pathos.com or Breitbart, but how are safe spaces actually used? How are trigger warnings actually used? What does privilege actually mean? Because there's so much misinformation out there about it that I think we agree more than we disagree. And I want to be the first person for whatever teeny tiny corner of the atheist community I represent, or for people who listen to my show. I want to be the first to take that step forward and say, let's have a conversation, let's meet in the middle, and let's move forward in the right ways about these different topics.
Okay, let me say, as you were saying that the atheist movement could be the first of our generation to do that, Alex, you were shaking your head. No. Mm-hmm. Well, why is that?
Why? Because this has only been a conversation that I've been a part of for the last 7 years. And I've tried to reconcile it. And, me being a person of color, I have come to a different realization, which is it's a different movement. It is really a different movement.
Now, when you say a different movement, you've said before that the black atheist movement is a different movement altogether. But what about social justice? Do you divide that now into a third division? Or do you think the black atheist movement is the social justice?
It is part of, right? So you have the progressive or the social justice movement, and you have the atheist or secular movement, and there are two different circles, and right there.
For those who can't see, he's doing a Venn diagram with his fingers.
Exactly. Yeah. So right in the middle is where I just happen to be, and I know that it's not the secular movement. I've been part of the secular movement long enough to know that it's not. And then same thing with the social justice. And I think a lot of people have written about this. Alex Gabriel has, Greta has, I have, for several years. It's just a different movement.
Okay, so Eli, let's start, and I don't necessarily agree with everything Alex said. I want the listener to know. Just because I'm not chiming in and interrupting, you listen to the show enough. I let Christians go on about how Noah's Ark was true and all sorts of. I sit here and I listen because it's a respectful thing to do. Don't think that because I'm not jumping into all these things that I absolutely agree, but I don't disagree with all of it either. So, Eli, you give us what you think your explanations are, your definitions rather, for safe space. Let's start with that one and move forward.
So I actually have some experience with safe spaces because when I was in college, I was part of a program that coordinated mental health on campus, presented a show at the beginning of the year about mental health. And one of the things that we were introduced to was very, very early and before the sort of popularity and I would say abuse of safe spaces came to the forefront of public knowledge, the idea of a safe space. So the history of a safe space, and I think this is important because this is how 90% of safe spaces are used today. The history of a safe space was a place for LGBT students to go and say things without judgment or disagreement about what it is that they were feeling and the experiences that we're going through. I feel like I'm a different gender than I present as. I feel gay, I feel bi, I feel this, that, and the other. And the reason why safe spaces were created is for the therapeutic reason that sometimes, not always in a therapy session, you want to be able to talk about your feelings without having someone disagree or tell you you're wrong. And at the time when safe spaces were created, that was really a problem. There were students going into LGBT centers and, waiting their turn in group therapy or group talk to say, well, I know you think you're a man, but I want you to know that Christ is my savior, and you should know that you're going to burn in eternity forever.
Okay. Hold on. So when you say a place for LGBT people to go to express their views, are you saying like a public forum at a university on a street corner? I want to be able to shout out that I am attracted to the same sex, and nobody should be able to disagree with me?
No, these are not public spaces. Most of these spaces, for the large part, take place in LGBT centers. And that's 90% of the safe spaces that I've had to do with. The day-to-day safe spaces, if you go to the safe space, for instance, at the LGBT Center at NYU, which is the one that I worked with most closely, day in and day out, it is a place where students can go and vent their feelings and emotions to like-minded individuals without disagreement. And I think it's important. I think it's healthy. And as many people have pointed out, it's something that's been around for a while. We've had Alcoholics Anonymous for years, and while AA is incredibly problematic in many, many ways, the idea of having a safe space to talk about the journey that you're going on in your addiction recovery or anything, your emotional journey, and this happens in support groups all over the place, therapeutic and non-therapeutic environments, is incredibly important. And what it's been twisted into is this straw man of students camping in a room on campus or having a room on campus where they run to when they hear an idea they don't like, or somehow, screaming safe space like it's safe in tag, like they run over and touch the car and now you're not it anymore in freeze tag. And the truth is that day in, day out, there definitely have been abuses of safe spaces. And I want to talk about how we can have a productive conversations about why that's the wrong way to use safe spaces.
Okay.
But day in, day out, that's not how safe spaces are used, and we need to stop abusing it.
Okay, no, I get you, and I think we should, of course, stop abusing it. That's one thing we talked about a few weeks ago. We brought up safe spaces very briefly and said, you know what, it shouldn't be abused. But I guess I'm still unclear as to the definition. Now, let me just break it down. For me, I would say that if you have a closed-door meeting of LGBT folks who want to get together and discuss their feelings, there should be a private, safe space available for those people to get together and have those discussions without having to let in someone who wants to preach to them. That I am perfectly fine with. Just a quick yes or no, would that be considered a safe space from your perspective?
Yes.
Okay, so I think where I have an issue is when it's going to be like at a university in a public area and say, hey, this is an LGBT safe zone. You're not allowed to disagree with the way I live. You're not allowed to disagree with me here. That is where I draw the line and go, no, I don't think there should be any place in public where people shouldn't disagree with you. Do you agree with that statement?
I disagree, and I'll tell you why. So an example that I'll give, a very specific example, is really recently at PSU, Portland State University, they had a students of color safe space where students of color went up and spoke about their experience as being students of color. And there was huge objections to the idea that, and basically what they said, and I don't know the exact wording, but they said something like, if you're not a student of color, feel free to come as support, but this is a time for students of color to have their voices heard, not necessarily for you to have your voice heard. And that seems to me as an example of a public space, a university public space where people are getting up and going to mics, and I would call that acceptable. And I know that many figures in the atheist community and the secular community did not call that acceptable and called it sort of whiny baby, namby-pamby, pseudo-racist, et cetera.
Well, okay, so I've been to an event before, without naming names, that I thought was going to be about uplifting, and it turned into bashing the opposition. It turned into basically, if you are white, you are automatically racist. This is your fault. And if something turned into that, I feel like someone should be able to say, no, that's not necessarily true. Let's apply skepticism universally. We understand racism is an issue, but let's not use your safe space as a platform to bash everybody who's not you. And so that's where I have the problem. If you tell me now at a university, a place of discussion and learning and free thought and challenging ideas and challenging authority, that I come to this area to be supportive, and then I am somewhat attacked, or not physically, but of course, verbally gone after just because of the color of my skin. You're telling me, well, if I stand up and say that's not necessarily true, you're stereotyping all white people. That's not the case. I'm here to support you. I'm white. I'm not allowed to say that because it's a safe space for people of color. I find that to be a little bit of an issue.
Okay, so let me explain the sort of what I disagree with in the thinking there, which is the sort of first part of that, which is that a university is a place for disagreement and interchange of free thought. And that is true for the most part. A university is. But a university is not a haunted house of bad ideas. Everyone who enters a university campus is not automatically required to defend intellectually everything they say. And through most of it, and please, Alex, jump in and interrupt me and talk about your experience rather than me talking about your experience at any moment you would like to. But a person of color's experience is a lifetime of being told what white people think of the experience of people of color through movies, through TV, through their everyday experience. People of color do not lack options to hear what white people, even white allies, say when it comes to their opinions on racial issues. What we don't have is enough opportunities for people of color to have their voice heard, and more importantly, to have their voices truly acknowledged and not dismissed in those universities.
No, yeah, I'm fine with that. What I'm saying is, what if during the process of the safe space,
you get offended?
I get offended by them abusing their safe space.
You get offended.
Yes.
So here's the thing.
Am I not allowed to speak up when I'm offended?
No, and this is really important. And people have brought this up to me before. They say, okay, should there be able to be a white supremacist safe space? Not that you're a white supremacist, but you know what I'm talking about. Should there be a white supremacist safe space? Should there be a men's rights activist safe space? And the answer is absolutely yes. This is a time for challenging ideas, and it's a time for other people to allow those ideas and absorb those ideas and feel the way you feel attacked and hurt. And I have it happen all the time. And I can only say this: when you let yourself sink in that feeling and feel it, as opposed to saying, well, wait, it's my turn to talk. I want to tell you why you're wrong, or I want to tell you why I'm not that way. If instead you just absorb another person's experience, all you gain from that is more knowledge. They know what we think. And again, Alex, chime in here, but they know what we think. They know when you say, white privilege, and they know the people who disagree with white privilege. They know the people who disagree with this, that, or the other. And for us to take our voices to that meeting is not only contradictory, it's not helpful, it's not useful to them because they're not learning anything new. There's no disproving of a person's experience. But more importantly, what we've done is we've lost ourselves the absolutely fantastic opportunity to absorb another person's true experience, unquestioned experience. And that is a true interchange of ideas. A true interchange of ideas is
no,
not...
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's a one-way street, and you're designing it to be a one-way street. That's fine if it's a one-way street and you call it that, but don't set up a one-way street where I have to sit and have someone call me a racist and call that an interchange of ideas. It's not.
The problem is, the reason why it's an interchange of ideas is that your side has already been heard.
Yeah.
It's just already been heard.
Actually,
it hasn't. That's ridiculous.
Really?
Yes.
I mean, that's exactly why we have Black History Month, right? Because everything else is, right?
White
because
History Month.
Look,
everything else is White History Month.
Look,
you're already talking to me. You're already talking. I've already heard it. You're going to keep talking to me. Now, when I express what I feel, you challenge me. Now, unfortunately, I don't have the numbers to challenge you. My voice is almost always diminished anyway. So now you have this opportunity. You have this opportunity, a chance to actually understand what I'm saying, what I'm feeling.
Yeah,
You're saying, no, it's about me now.
No, I'm not.
Actually, you are.
No, I'm not. Because I talked about a specific scenario in which the safe space is abused to attack others. Okay? Let's be clear about that. Because if we're going to talk skeptically and say, look, I want to go to, like I told you, I wanted to go to the Black Non-Believers Conference. I'm not going to go there to challenge people. I obviously want to go there to understand the black experience within the atheist movement. That's what I want to sit and listen to. I'm not going to get up and challenge your ideas. It's your life. It's your experience. I 100% agree with you. My point is, if I attend a speech like that, and it's a safe space where you can express how you feel, and in the process of you telling me how you feel, you attack me with untrue statements, I feel like telling me I can't defend myself is stifling my freedom of speech. That's what I'm saying, and I feel like that's you abusing the safe space as a shield to say anything you want without being challenged, and I don't think that should be okay.
If I'm attacking you personally, yes. Go ahead, stand up, and do it. It's not my fault that you feel offended because I'm talking about white people or my experience with racism in a white supremacist.
Well, look, it could be directed toward me, but indirectly. And let me give you an example. Because this has happened before. And I'm not going to say who, but I'm just going to tell you. I was at a conference at one point, and there was a black speaker. And the black speaker started off talking about black experiences in America, working with churches, working in charity, and all sorts of things. And I sat there and I was like, okay, that's interesting. I wasn't aware of that. I didn't feel that way, but it helps to see it from your perspective. And it was very interesting. And then the speaker started to say, you white atheists think you've been discriminated against. No, you haven't. This is discrimination. Strike one. Now you're discounting what experiences you don't even know about me. Now you're saying that you don't know that I've been fired from 2 jobs because being an atheist. You don't know what I've gone through in court battles. You don't know the way I've been treated in Texas for being an atheist. How dare you sit up there and say that I don't? Of course, yours may be worse if we want to have a my problems are worse than your problems argument. But to tell me I don't even know what discrimination is because I'm white, that's offensive. That's
was this in a safe space that someone said this, or was this just a speaker?
Well, this was just a speaker. But I'm saying if this were to happen in a safe space, I'm supposed to keep my mouth shut. And then it went even further than that. It went even further. I
just want to differentiate that, if a speaker says something, questioning it is entirely fair game in my mind versus a safe space. They are very different things.
Okay,
right?
But if someone said that exact thing to start it, and then it sort of went into this. In fact, if you are white, you are automatically racist, and here's why, and here's all the reasons why, and you could never understand where I'm coming from. You will never, and it starts to just separate us instead of bring us together. If that comment, if that type of spitting fire at the people who are there to support you, if that were to happen at a safe space, you're telling me, sorry, this is a safe space. You came here to get beat up. You better just take it and keep your mouth shut. That's not an interchange of ideas, and I don't know why you would.
It's not about getting beat up. It's about getting a chance to listen to someone else's experience. It's an interchange of ideas because they have already gotten a chance to hear your ideas, and in a safe space.
But no, they haven't. No, they haven't.
Yes,
because they don't. Because that person does not know that I went to an all-black school and was discriminated against repeatedly by black officials, by black students. They don't know that about me. They don't know that my high school principal had what he called a minority field trip to go see a politician speak, and me and about 6 other white kids had to go to detention while 500 black students went on a field trip, and I wasn't allowed to go because I'm white. They don't know that happened to me.
Okay, so David, here is the question. Do you want to be able to tell that story unquestioned, or do you want me to call someone in who, while you're in the middle of relaying that experience, stands up and talks about Emmett Till?
Ah, okay. So hold on. So there's a difference. There's a difference. No. Stop right there. There's a difference between disagreeing with me and interrupting me. I'm not going to stand up and shout in the middle of someone's speech. That is absolutely inappropriate. I'm not going to interrupt. I'm going to let that person finish speaking. But I'm saying if you go on the attack against someone else, don't just assume that you already know my story because of the color of my skin.
So then let me throw this at you. Let me throw this scenario at you. I'm a Christian. I'm a fervent believer. Obviously, I'm not, anyone who's heard my show. But I'm a Christian. I'm a fervent believer. We're in an LGBT safe space. Someone stands up, starts to talk about their love for their boyfriend. It is absolutely imperative that when they are done speaking, I stand up and let them know that they will burn in fire forever due to their decisions, and that their encouragement of fellow students to think this way.
Eli, that's not an accurate analogy. At what point in that gay person's expressing their love for their significant other did they attack the Christian?
Oh, they can talk about so if they had said something like, and I feel really attacked by Christians.
No.
Christians are bigots who say these horrible things and stand on the campuses, tell me that
if they were to say every single Christian on this planet is automatically a bigot and you're automatically against me and I don't like you for that, and I already know your experience and I already know what you're going to say, there may be 15 Christians in there that are struggling with their faith because they are supportive of the gay community. And it's really unfair to the people in that audience to be attacked when they don't agree with this subject that this label that's being applied to them.
Sure, but the problem is you have drawn a line where you believe that disagreement is allowed, and if we do not set up a and listen, I'm with you. I want that interchange of ideas, and I'm not trying to demean your experience because that's actually the opposite of the helpfulness that I think safe spaces facilitate. I'm not trying to demean your experience, but what I am trying to say is if we do not have areas where we can say, hey guys, no disagreement, none. Everyone gets to hear their voice heard. There's no disagreement no matter what anyone says. There will always be lines drawn along the way in places that you and I disagree, right, that they should be drawn, where someone will stand up and that voice will be silenced. And again, I can only speak for me. I really don't want to speak to your experience. I can say, as a white, upper class, middle class guy who lives in just sort of a privileged tower, if you will be, everyone has heard my experience. They haven't heard my hardships, and I don't want to say that an individual's experience is totally dismissed by privilege. But I know that when I hear uncomfortable voices, what I can gain the most, if I want to learn the most, if I want to know the most true things about the universe and be the true skeptic who wants to hear other ideas, I should be more interested in absorbing other people's experience and absorbing Alex's experience.
Yeah, I'm not arguing with any of that. I absolutely agree with 100% of what you're saying.
And you understand that by standing up in a safe, by making a space unsafe, essentially, by standing up and disagreeing with that person,
I think
we inevitably silence their voice. We just have to. By the very nature of it, we have to. Right or wrong, we silence them.
No, and I don't think, and I think people, I think it's hard to take it serious when the word safe is also used. I think that a lot of people kind of roll their eyes at that, because now you're telling me if I disagree with you, you don't feel safe. And that's okay. Hold on a second. We've got to be able to have discourse. We've got to be able to challenge ideas without you feeling completely attacked because I disagree with your concept.
No one here, and I can't speak for Alex again, but I can speak for me and I can speak for the definition of a safe space. No one is saying that a safe space is a universal idea applied to everything. I believe in rigorous debate, fire-breathing, scream and shout with your buddies kind of debate, and I believe it in almost all spaces. Safe spaces are the exception to that rule in universities. The reason they exist, the reason why they were implemented, and the reason why they're so important is because universities are so important when it comes to the exchange of ideas that sometimes you need a place to go that's not an exchange of ideas.
Yeah, I think what I'm getting at here is and the listener may be confused as to my position because I'm not really arguing too much with you. I think I agree with it for the most part. And let me just give me a moment to kind of parse this out. I think, for one, if you want to have an LGBT meeting that is about LGBT issues and you don't want to be challenged by some religious right, okay, I'm fine with that if we label it as such and say this is for the LGBT people to talk to us about how they feel. I'm fine with that. And I'm fine with saying this is one area where protest won't be allowed. I'm fine with that. My argument is, if during the course of that safe space, someone abuses that power to then go on the attack and make accusations, direct accusations, and false statements that then vilify either direct people or entire groups of people, I think that we should draw the line and go, look, it's a safe space to tell me how you feel, but you are not allowed to make false accusations. You can't stand up there and scream fire in a crowded movie theater, okay? Cause a bunch of panic, pandemonium, and unrest and say, you're not allowed to do anything. This is a safe space. I'm talking about the abuse of the safe space. So I'm fine with it being there as a concept. Like I'm fine with having a place for say Black Republicans to go, to not be yelled at by a bunch of Democrats or yelled at by a bunch of atheists. I'm fine with that, to share ideas that aren't common. I'm fine with that. That doesn't bother me a bit. I'm totally fine with it. But if they then use their platform, if they use that protective bubble to falsify statements or attack people, then I think they've broken the bubble by issuing an attack.
The problem is where you draw the line. The moment we say, yes, lines can be drawn on this safe space, I'm fine with having until XYZ, can't be standardized. What is if there were a Christian safe space.
That's fair.
Yeah. If there were a Christian safe space, for example, nobody gets to talk in front of Eli Bosnik. Everybody's like, so I just want to say the Lord and Savior. Nope. Stop it.
But that's not a direct attack on you, and you keep equating those two, Eli, and I don't know why that is. You disagreeing with me isn't the same as you attacking my character.
Absolutely. The problem is the moment we say, and this is where I think we agree, the moment we say these lines can be drawn, how do we standardize that? How do we say, okay, this is where, because, I can say, and I'm not saying this is a good argument, but I can say when someone talks about salvation, I consider it a direct attack on me because I'm aware that I am not saved. And when someone talks about the beauty of knowing that their grandmother is in heaven, it is a direct attack on me. Now, I'm being facetious, of course, and I'm being a little wibbly-wobbly about it, but there will be people who are wibbly-wobbly about it, as opposed to a carte blanche where we just say, hey, there is no chance to disagree here. In this one moment, you can disagree in your classrooms, you can disagree online, you can find page after page, book after book, forum after forum of people disagreeing and having the exact kind of conversation you want to have where your voice can be heard. But this place, right here and now, this is a place where someone can just tell you their experience. And we, and I can only speak for me, so I have the absolutely golden opportunity to hear someone else's experience without the filter of what am I going to say when Eli gets up and tells me how much he likes black people or gay people or Christians.
Okay, Donovan, go ahead.
So let me get this straight. So what this really is that you're basically saying this is a blog, but it's verbal.
I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking listen to a podcast.
This is my video.
It's basically a podcast.
With no comments.
Yeah.
Shut the comments off. I'm going to tell you what I think, and I just want you to hear, and you don't get to repeat back.
That's exactly
that I can kind of understand. If it's that kind of scenario, I think that's an okay thing.
Yeah, and if the people go there realizing that that's all it's there for, is it's a one-way output, not an exchange of ideas, that's fine. What I don't want is Eli to come on and say, hey, guys, here's what's happening. This is a one-way conversation. You may be offended, and we're going to call this an exchange of ideas. It's not. It's not an exchange of ideas. You're going to sit and watch a movie. You're going to sit and listen to a podcast. You can think things all you want in your head, just like you can be screaming things back at your radio right now, and we can't hear you. It's the same thing, but it's not an interchange of ideas.
I guess I would say it depends on how you define an interchange of ideas. I will 100% agree with you in that if an interchange of ideas requires everyone's voice to be heard, yes, it is not an interchange of ideas.
Okay.
If it's a chance for one to hear if you count the chance to hear uncensored experiential progress from another human being, an interchange of ideas, then I would call it an interchange of ideas. But if the objection to it, people and scorn that people have for it in the secular community is simply that they don't get a chance to talk, and not that it's somehow this large-scale crushing of free speech on university campuses, which is the dialogue. It is the zeitgeist. Mm-hmm. No one's saying, hey, I think it's weird that this conversation's one way. Everyone's saying this is a nightmarish experience, and I have, citations for that. And there are actually abuses of safe spaces that I do want to talk about and I do want to disagree with. But I want to draw that line between, if you want to say, okay, the problem with a safe space is that only one person's experience gets to talk, even though, of course, many people will get to talk, then okay, I mean, it's just not to your taste. You get to avoid them forever. But if people are saying they shouldn't exist, which is hugely a problem in the atheist community, that's where I draw my line.
Okay, so we have so much more to get to. And so I want to get Alex, you haven't said a whole lot, so I want to get your feedback to wrap this segment up. We will touch back on this when we go to the extended show and we're not on a time constraint. So we will get back into this. We're going to talk more about trigger warnings and things like that. We'll do that in the extended show. And I want to save the privilege piece of this for when we talk about atheism and feminism. Okay, I think the privilege goes better in line with the atheism and feminism discussion. So, Alex, I want to get your take on this real quick before we go to break and come back with the Black Lives Matter.
I actually agree with him. I mean,
100% with him?
Yeah, I want to say 99 point something else when it comes to it. The problem is we don't have a lot of safe spaces. African Americans, LGBT, many of the minority groups don't. And as much as I may love you as a friend, when I have a platform, and you can't discredit or discount how I feel. Now, if all we have to do is instead of attacking, and I might write about this, instead of attacking you directly and talking about the evidence that I live and experience and may have citation after citation to talk about, if I started with I feel, would that make it better for you?
Yes, it honestly would. And I know that sounds trivial, But it does. If you're explaining to me that that's your experience, and you say things like, I feel, because then I think it would point out how ridiculous the statement is. If you say something like, I feel that no white atheist has ever actually experienced discrimination.
See, you're internalizing one particular experience.
It's only because it's an idea. It's a real life.
That's one.
It's because it's a real world example that actually happened to me while I was watching a speech, which is why I'm thinking, okay, if I had gone to it as a safe space, I would be thinking, I'm not going to say anything, but this is an abuse of a safe space. You are now attacking groups of people, and I think that's inappropriate.
But you went there voluntarily, so
exactly.
So if it's named a safe space, and you went there to listen, you had to accept the fact that you didn't get.
It's not for you. I mean, and this is true. This is the idea that a lot of us have to get through. It's not about us. It's about whoever them is. It's not about you. It has absolutely nothing to do with you.
Look, it's like in the Republican debate when your name is mentioned, you get 30 seconds to respond, right?
No, it's not like that.
Well, that's
because
what I'm saying.
But it's not a debate. It's not a debate. It's a discussion, and sometimes it's a discussion between a shared group of people who have a shared experience that do not get a platform, and they get to have the discussion. They get to share some of it with other people.
I guess I'm being extreme here because
I know.
95% I agree that there should be these areas where people can have private meetings, okay? But when you open it up to the public and then attack that public that shows up, and the person goes, now, hold on a second. You can't just say that because I'm a white atheist, I've never experienced discrimination. Get out of here. You're not allowed to talk in here. Get out. Okay. That's BS. I don't agree with
you
that.
Keep going
so
back to
point,
that
I am.
one.
I'm going back. Well, because
but
because
you can't
if
equate
find that person, David. Do you want to bring him?
Because it'd be very easy to. But because if there was
no, I know it is.
No, because my point is, and I keep going back to that specific example, because if there has been one abuse of that, and there were several in that talk, I know that's probably where people are coming from when they fight out against that. And I feel like if you're fighting, I don't feel like that abuse of the safe space happens all the time. So I feel like us saying there should not be any safe spaces because there might be abuse is almost like the Republicans demanding voter ID cards because there might be voter fraud. Right. That's what I feel like we're kind of saying here.
Just to sort of broaden out the lens a little bit, look at the characterization, right? We may disagree, and we can go back and forth on sort of whether or not safe space, this, that, or the other. But look at the characterization of a safe space by the secular community. I mean, I don't know about you guys. My Facebook feed, when the South Park episode with my safe space came out, that's the characterization of a safe space. Not, I feel like it's not a two-way dialogue. It was a glass bubble where no one has to hear anything they don't want to hear because at the end, they literally murder reality. That's a safe space. That's the characterization that the secular community has put to the safe space. So while I think we're in major agreement for the most part, when I say there's a problem with our approach to safe spaces, I'm talking about secular leaders, author of some of my favorite books, putting up that video and going, this is a perfect takedown of safe spaces, and me going, how am I hearing this from some of our leadership? How is this possibly making it through into public zeitgeist? This gross of an exaggeration and this incorrect of an idea of something that's truly, truly useful. I mean, truly useful. And the day-to-day use of it is incredibly helpful to people of color and LGBT students and trans students all over the world.
See, and this is why I said in the beginning, there's a separate movement, right? Because I shouldn't have to try and convince people in the secular movement that I need this. This is exactly why a second movement or multiple movements exist.
So, Alex, would you approve of and support a white supremacist group having a safe space to be able to shout what they want to shout without disagreement?
They already do. Have you not been to a Young Republicans meeting?
No. I'm asking you if you would be. It's funny and all, but I'm being serious.
They already
exist. Would you support? I don't care if they exist. I'm asking if you support it. If you support at a university a safe space for white supremacists to talk about how whites are superior to all other races. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I am. Because they already exist. I have to accept it. How am I going to change it?
Are you
How am I
supportive
going
of
to change
it?
it?
If you could change it, would you say they shouldn't be allowed to do that?
Would I say that they can't just poof and they're gone?
If you could stop that safe space, if you could say that group's not allowed to do it, would you stop them from having that ability?
No, because then they just go back to Congress and do it.
You're avoiding my question.
No, I haven't.
You're avoiding my question.
They exist. They will continue to exist.
That's not what I'm asking.
Just like Westboro Baptist Church,
Right.
we would
My
fight
answer
their
would
right
be-
to have their signs and do the things that they're supposed to do, whether we agree with it or not. Do you feel like that about that?
Oh, was that for me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Answer the question, Alex.
what
You're
was the
just
question
avoiding
again?
the question.
No, I'm not avoiding the question. Yes, I would support it because it's their freedom to actually say what they're going to say.
You just
Right. So
you just
if
wouldn't attend it.
University X said, we're also going to have a white supremacy safe space. And Alex, don't let me speak for you here. If University X said we're going to have a white supremacy safe space at 4 o'clock in the rec hall where white students and white students only are encouraged to share their experience, I think I can say, for me at least, and I can't speak for Alex, I would say absolutely. Let them
Alex,
have that space.
what do you say to
No,
that? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't they
Now,
call
I
that a
don't-
fraternity meeting?
Now listen,
Yeah, exactly.
I don't necessarily
In Oklahoma, it's
listen.
young
Listen,
Republicans.
hold on. I don't necessarily agree with that. You know why? Because people of color are not gathering to say that they're better than white people. And the LGBT community is not gathering to say that they're better than straight or cisgender people, right? Transgender people are not gathering to say we are better than cisgender. That's not what it's about. White supremacists are hate groups saying we are better than you. So I think that would disqualify them from this.
But you just compared that other situation to that.
Exactly.
So what's the difference?
That's what I'm saying. That is the abuse of a safe space. Because in that situation I'm talking about,
So the
it happened to be a
problem is-
black presenter who was saying that, I know more about your story than you do, and I know that you've never been through discrimination, and if you're in here and your skin is white, you're automatically racist. That's just what institutionalized racism does to all white people. That's the blanket statement, broad brush. I did feel attacked in that. I still didn't say anything, even though I wasn't in a safe space, because I went to see that person give a talk and left halfway through it going, that's not equality. That's beating up an entire group of people who are here to support you. I'm out of here. Right? So I just stopped supporting that individual. Okay? That's what I chose to do. So
the problem with us drawing lines, with the problem with us saying, a white supremacy safe space is different than an LGBT or a this, that, or the other, is the moment we draw lines into where people can share their experience unquestioned, we open up the door for anybody to say, this is a hate group, that's a hate group.
no, it's about the message, Eli.
I get told my message is hateful constantly.
Okay.
I get constant messages.
We're gonna have to come back. We're gonna have to come back and touch this on the extended show. We have so much more to get to, and we've already basically taken up time for 2 segments. So coming up next, we're gonna get into Black Lives Matter, in case it hasn't already been controversial enough. More Dogma Debate coming up.
Download Dogma Debate with no commercials by signing up at login.dogmadebate.com.
Here's an excerpt from Our Constitution, The Way It Was, by Dr. Madeleine O'Hare.
Seemingly, no one knew just what to do. There was no clear-cut program. Some wanted to try to continue to negotiate with the British government. Others wanted to continue the armed revolt in the hopes of forcing the king and parliament to remedy their grievances. There was no one, apparently, who had the vision to call for complete severance of all political ties with Britain and to found a new nation. The situation remained stalemated until the end of the year. Then, in January 1775, Thomas Paine's pamphlet, Common Sense, came off the press. It was like a fresh wind clearing away a fog. In the simple yet forceful language that characterizes all his writings, Paine showed the absurdity of continuing a relationship of colonies to a mother country. Why, he asked, should the colonies, already peopled with 3 million inhabitants and destined to expand to cover a vast continent, be ruled from a small island 3,000 miles away? Why continue to be subjects of a tyrant king when the way was open to be citizens of a free republic? This pamphlet spread like wildfire. The small presses of the time could not keep up with the demand. Hundreds of thousands of copies were issued and penetrated to every colony in a short time. Paine's arguments were unanswerable. They left no middle ground. All talk of compromise and further petitions to Parliament died out.
Find this audiobook and many more at atheistaudiobooks.com.
I'm offended by chewing gum. I'm offended by backwards-pointing baseball hats. But I don't try to get a version of the blasphemy law passed to prevent people chewing gum or reversing their cap. So what if I'm offended? So what if my feelings are hurt? Does that give me the right to prevent others from expressing their opinions? However, is there a time when it is right to be offended? I think so, yes. We should be offended when children are denied a proper education. We should be offended when children are told they will spend eternity in hell. We should be offended when medical science, for example, stem cell research, is compromised by... Compromised, I should say, by the bigoted opinions of powerful and, above all, well-financed ignoramuses.
Hey, fourth listener, get your behind-the-scenes access, peek into the studio, and even get special contact info all by signing up at login.dogmadebate.com.
This segment is brought to you by some of our favorite premium members: Lauren Carter, Dennis Cupp, Paul Kersey, J.D. Minges, Beth Deitch, damn it, almost made it, Nick Chartrand, and Andrea Calhoun. What, Alex?
I was like, he's going to get through it. He's going to get it.
He's going to get it. I felt like I was going to be professional. The music rolled in. The timing was great. Reading random names on air is one of the most difficult things I've ever done as a radio host.
Remember, members always have a weird name, so you can't do it right.
I think they do it on purpose. I think as they're born, their parents go, "How can we screw up David Smalley?"
Yeah. Well, we have some that aren't even real names.
Yeah, I know. I know. And nonetheless, we appreciate you guys so much for being our premium supporters. We love you. We love you. Welcome back, Eli.
Thanks. I was rocking out so hard during that intro.
So, the Black Lives Matter movement. Now, when I mention... Alex, we haven't talked about this in a while. Am I hiding from the camera? It doesn't matter. We've talked about this a lot, actually. We've talked about Black Lives Matter a lot, and you've actually told me you appreciate the platform and that there aren't other podcasts doing this. Eli, are you aware that we have talked about a lot of these social justice issues on Dogma Debate? You keep saying the conversation's not happening. It happens right here on this show.
Yeah, and he's usually wrong, but it's okay.
I still provide the platform.
That's true.
That's true. And I've learned a lot, and I've changed my views on it.
Yeah. I'm glad the conversation is happening. I think to be clearer and to be fairer, especially to shows like yours that are addressing these subjects, among our leadership, the ones that are usually so incredibly willing to have a conversation have shut down about these social justice issues. But definitely praise goes to you who have talked about these issues and do talk about them, continue to speak about them.
All right. I appreciate
I shouldn't have spread my peanut butter so wide. I'm not allowed to swear, guys. My show is filled with filth, and I've just been, my whole week has been
somehow I'm offended by you spreading your peanut butter on my show. I don't... know what that means exactly.
I'll say the thing I was thinking.
I mean,
don't do that.
No, it's I'm offended, and I don't know why. It's one of those things. No, so Alex, so let's talk about Black Lives Matter.
Can I play with my peanut butter?
Yes. Just don't spread it.
Okay.
This is a safe spread zone. It's fine.
David at Dogma Debate.
No, that's not my email
I'm
address.
just
That
saying.
email address doesn't exist. I take your complaints at brandy at dogmadebate.com, and everybody knows that. So, Alex, let me turn this entire discussion on its head. And I know you have to worry about backlash as well. Do you think there has ever been an instance in which Black Lives Matter activists have gone too far?
Haven't seen it yet.
Okay, Eli, what about you?
I actually agree. And I think the gone too far is a problem with tone policing and just a problem of not understanding larger context. And again, I hate to be, I can already see into the future all the like, you're just an SJW, this, that, the other. And again, anyone is more than welcome to not to be the guy who plugs his own show, but I'm a very, very misogynistic, racist, next level evil comedian. If you listen to my show, you're going to be like, how is that the guy who said safe spaces? And we can talk about why.
You guys laughed over that, and I wanted a clean clip of him saying
I did not laugh. I was quiet.
Oh. No, that was too funny. No, I'm laughing at that.
Damn it. Okay.
And I can talk about the differences of that. But the truth of the matter is this. You cannot enslave and then instate laws against and then change those laws and then instate new laws which create ghetto states and destroy family structures and then kill people's children in the street unapologetically and without recourse, and then always 100% of the time expect them to ask you nicely to stop, especially because the asking nicely to stop, the system that we have set up for African Americans in this country.
Eli, that is a huge straw man. I've got to stop you there. I don't think anybody would agree with you. I mean, I don't think anybody would disagree with you there if those were all happening. And I am not saying that you have to ask nicely. That is a BS straw man argument, and you know better. I am not saying ask nicely. Be disruptive. Protest. Madeline Murray O'Hare had to do it, or we wouldn't be doing what we're doing today. I don't always agree with Dave Silverman's approaches, but I appreciate where his activism gets us, where his attitude gets us sometimes. I can appreciate that, even though that's not my cup of tea. I'm much more moderate. I'm much more of a nice guy approach for the most part, but I appreciate where it goes. I'm not saying that you have to ask us nicely. It's a straw man.
Okay, but I want to go to a place that you and I have visited before. When you like to bring up, when Black Lives Matter activists have shut down transportation, and what's come out is, what if someone was trying to get home to see this or that, et cetera. We've had that conversation, right?
Yeah.
And
off air,
and I've thought about it. And I was like, well, if you're willing to apply that universally, then I'm okay with that. But if you do that, and we're talking about the airports where Black Lives Matter activists shut down the airport and stop people from getting home, you also have to go back in time and say you opposed Rosa Parks because she did exactly the same thing. She stopped people from getting home. Now, of course, the analogy does actually work. It was just the number of people that were impacted. So are you about to go on? Are you about to say that you opposed Rosa Parks' activism?
Rosa was being, in that moment, she was being discriminated against and was told to get up and move to the back. She refused. That's not the same thing.
No. When she did it, she knowingly did it. That's the nature of civil disobedience. Right. So people like that. James Blake, who asked her to get off, and the same kinds of arguments that we're having at the same time saying, what about those poor white people that were being inconvenienced, we're having again now?
Okay, but there's a difference here in that Rosa Parks was being told at that moment to move to the back. As far as I'm concerned, James Blake was the one holding up and inconveniencing those people.
But it was the law.
Because he could have just let her sit where she was sitting.
No, it was the law.
Yeah, no, but it's not the same thing because she's being told to move and she's refusing to move. That's not the same thing as a shooting happening where an officer breaks the law and kills an unarmed person and needs to be held.
You're stretching it.
And I've got to finish, or you don't know I'm stretching it. There's a difference in. No, I think you're stretching it to make me sound like I'm against Rosa Parks.
Go ahead.
I mean, Jesus, this is crazy.
No, go ahead.
No, it's completely different when a crime takes place and an officer shoots someone he shouldn't have shot. He needs to go through the judicial process, and in the process of that happening, 20 miles away, people who want to have influence in that discussion block the entrance of an airport or block an entire freeway. Let's just think about the ramifications of this. Yes, if I'm driving along trying to go on holiday, poor, pitiful me, right? I get it. But there are doctors trying to get to the hospital to deliver babies. There are people in emergency situations trying to drive to the hospital. There are people trying to get on flights to get back to their homeland country to get their parents out of a deadly situation. And how dare you stand there and say that your life is now more important than everybody else's? That's the issue I have. Black Lives Matter should be, and I think for the most part, is about Black Lives Matter too, right? So don't discount us, don't shoot us, don't treat us differently. Let's discuss institutionalized racism. I agree with every bit of that. Black people are not treated fairly in this country. They're not, and I'm all for equality. But when I say the words too far, I don't see it as tone policing. I see it as you've gone a step further now, and you have not just said Black Lives Matter too. You have said Black Lives Matter is the only important thing happening, and you and your trip to the hospital can wait. You going to get your chemo, little girl, you can sit there and wait because
Rosa
Black
did the same
Lives
thing.
Matter.
Rosa did the same thing.
No, she didn't.
Yes, she did. Absolutely,
No,
because
she
it was
a bus. It wasn't an airport.
Okay, so now we're getting into the point of moral relativism, right? Because that bad was worse than this bad. Yeah.
No, I think what I'm saying is you can go around a bus if you're blocking the entire airport entrance.
No.
It's massive. The amount of disruption. Some amount of disruption
relative.
is necessary.
It's all relative.
It may be. It may be
relative. The question
relative.
then becomes things like the Warsaw Ghetto and the uprisings there and the innocent quote unquote lives that were taken from the Warsaw Ghetto uprisings. The problem is where you draw this line. And I'm not trying to straw man you, and it's hard to give examples without straw manning in this case. But the moment we say, well, here's the line where the fact that there are laws in this country and your children are being murdered in the streets, you don't get to cross this. You can give your message this amount. But the moment it crosses over into X, Y, or Z, it's no longer allowed, or it's gone too far.
I think it's missed the point, is what I'm saying. I think you've overstretched. And look, the people who always say all lives matter. I actually, about almost a year ago, as kind of a joke, I put that on Facebook. It was with Steve Hill, and we were in this discussion. I said, it's okay, don't worry, only Black Lives Matter. And it was a joke, right? It wasn't taken as a joke. People got pissed off. The point of that was I was taking it the wrong way. I was taking Black Lives Matter to mean only Black Lives Matter. Within a week or two, you and I talked, I think. You helped me realize, along with other people on the show and emails, that Black Lives Matter doesn't mean only Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter mean just as much as your lives matter. That's what it actually means. And when I understood that and embraced it, I got behind the concept, right? And I'm fine with that. We will disrupt, we will protest, we will talk, we will bring up these social injustices, we will protest, we will go to the police departments, we will make our voices heard. But when you go that extra step to block an airport entrance, knowing that there's got to be emergency. Let me give you one exact direct example. There is a girl who suffers from a disease, and I don't know the name of it. I probably couldn't pronounce it anyway, having to do with her blood vessels. She has to drive to Colorado, and she can't fly because her veins can't stand the altitude difference. She would die on the plane. So imagine you having a 4-day window to get your daughter to this hospital in Denver, and you were driving her. Let me finish, Alex. You were driving her.
I haven't said anything.
No, but you're leaning up with body language like you're about to interrupt, and I don't want you to.
But I haven't yet.
So I imagine you're driving your daughter for that treatment. You've got to get her to the hospital to save her life, and suddenly there's traffic for hours and hours and hours. Your daughter is in pain. Your daughter is suffering, and you come to find out it was Black Lives Matter folks all holding hands saying, protesting police officers shooting a black unarmed teen. You are in support of Black Lives Matter, and they are hurting you. They are hurting your daughter. They are hurting their own people by doing this.
Did that happen?
I disagree with you so strongly, because the truth is, I just want to point out, in this scenario, you've had to create this girl with this rare disease who can't go and fly.
I didn't create her.
Well,
did this actually happen?
I didn't create her, number one. Number two, she exists. And the reason I bring it up is because there has got to be, when you block an entire airport.
Emotion.
No, listen. When
appeal
you block,
emotion.
No, when you it's appeal to statistical probability.
It's appeal to emotion because you
it's
haven't backed
statistical
it up.
probability. Whenever you say that there's this
God
one,
exists because.
No, whenever there's this one, don't go there. When there's this one girl who had this one affliction, who needed help, and may or may not have been blocked by Black Lives Matter, and you say that 40,000 people that day were blocked from entering an airport, statistical probability states that there are multiple instances of situations just like that. Or the man who needs to get to the airport to fly to see his dying mother, knowing damn good and well she has 3 hours left to live and the flight's an hour and 50 minutes. I've got to get there to see my mom. Oh, I can't. Why? Because Black Lives Matter. That is going too far.
Same thing with Rosa Parks.
That is a hypothetical against the reality of the situation we live in, of the actual hundreds of thousands of lives destroyed by the drug war, of the actual children shot to death in the street by nervous, undertrained police.
I agree with that.
Those are actual situations.
I agree with it. I know. I agree with every bit of that.
I certainly have sympathy for a girl who may have or may have not. I mean, that gets into sort of butterfly effect sort of things of like, what if someone's laughing at my show and then they smash their car into the guardrail and that stops someone from doing the this, that, or the other? It's, the moment we start putting these hypothetical limitations.
Eli, come on. That is such a BS straw man, and you know it.
But you created
once
one
again,
yourself.
Eli, this is bullshit. Both of you have taken what I've actually said and then acted like some shit happened on accident, and then applying that to me actually doing it on purpose. It is completely different. If you're being funny on your show, Eli, which may or may not happen, I don't know.
Oh, come on. I almost had an accident on the way here.
No. If you're being funny, you're being funny on your show, and then someone accidentally hits into a okay, you weren't intentionally causing a blockage of the road. Okay, you weren't intentionally causing that person to choke or to hit something or whatever they did. It was all unintended consequences. My point here is it is the direct intention of that particular group to block an entire airport's entrance. And what I am saying is that is going too far, because you're no longer saying Black Lives Matter. 2, you are now putting yourself above other people, saying that no matter what emergency you may or may not have, no matter where you may have to sleep on some airport floor tonight because your flight had to be canceled, no matter all of this, Black Lives Matter more than yours. And that's when I say you go too far. But that's the message you're sending to people when you cause that level
that you took.
Because when you cause that level of disruption, that's what it feels like to us. That's what it feels like to the people.
What do you mean by
the
us?
people sitting in traffic? The people not getting their flights.
I mean, the problem that comes up, I think, in that situation is that in order for that protest to be problematic, what you have to do is you have to, through your lens, expand that perspective to the worst possible scenarios, right? The worst possible scenarios. But it's not – so my issue is this with what you're saying, David, is it doesn't bother you, or it doesn't –
Here we go again.
It's not disruptive to you. It's not world-endingly disruptive to you that cops are killing children in the streets. It's not
false statement. False statement, Eli. That's a straw man.
Okay, but do you understand what I'm saying?
No, I don't understand it, because you're not speaking in reality, Eli. You've got to talk in actual terms for me to keep up with you. I have never said it is not disruptive to me that black people are killed or mistreated at a statistical rate alarmingly when compared to white people. That is institutionalized racism. It's an issue. It needs to be dealt with. The militarization of our police force is an issue, needs to be dealt with. I am all about protests. I am all about protesting the police departments. I'm all about justice for Freddie Gray. Every bit of this I am on board with. with. I had a former Baltimore police officer on my show, Michael Wood, who's actually coming to stay with me this week or next week, and we're going to probably do another show together about Black Lives Matter and about all the things wrong that police officers do. Absolutely, I'm against every bit of that. And that's my point. I want the movement to be effective as a movement of equality. I want it to be effective to say Black Lives Matter just as much as yours. And my only issues are whenever they go the step further. When I say they, I mean the movement or those organizers of that individual group, not black people or not the Black Lives Matter group as a whole. When that little group decided in that area that they were going to shut down an airport, now you have said more than we matter to. You've said we matter more than you matter. And you're not taking into consideration the people that you're harming in the process. That doesn't mean that I don't care about other people or black people being shot. And for you to apply that label to me is extremely offensive.
The problem is there's no form of protest that one cannot make that argument about. There's absolutely no example of give me an example of protest where I can't create a situation where that puts up the exact same dire circumstances.
No, and it still be effective. And for it to be effective. Go ahead.
No, I mean all of the I think the Black Lives Matter movement, just like any movement, just like the atheist movement or the LGBT movement, you need multiple streams of effective protest.
So we should just go back to marching.
No, not just marching. I'm saying there are multiple streams. There are the television interviews whenever they interrupted Bernie Sanders. That was effective.
Oh no, but that was too far for a lot of people, man.
I understand.
Oh, come on.
I mean, understand.
But not have had deadly consequences. Could have had deadly consequences.
How?
What if that had started a riot?
No. Come on. If
once again, that would be an accidental causation, not intentional consequences.
That it's a purposeful causation that they would stop that little girl from getting her treatments in Denver?
Exactly.
Yes.
How?
Did
they know it?
This
was the intent?
That's when I'm talking about statistical probability. When you shut down an entire street or you shut down an entire airport and there are 40, 50,000 people that can't get to where they need to go, the statistical probability of a handful of those people being in an emergency life or death situation is very likely.
Okay, so what I did, because I knew we were going to go there, I actually went looking for those stories. I didn't find any, David.
Absence of evidence is not your evidence.
I know, but I'm just saying. But no, hold on.
Fallacies are flying left. And this is why I wrote that article, 5 warning signs that social justice may be your new religion.
Hold on. But you don't believe that would have gotten news? Are you serious, David? You cannot honestly say that if someone had died because of that,
of course it would.
We wouldn't have heard about it. Of course we would. It would have been part. No. It would have been part of the GOP debate. It absolutely would have.
Probably. But it doesn't matter if it did happen or not. It matters that.
But it's a claim that you have.
No, it's not, Alex.
But you're attributing them.
What I'm saying,
purposeful endangerment of other people.
What I'm saying is they were careless.
No, you said because we're taking this away from accidents. That was the thing, right? The mistake that I am making that you have claimed twice, and listen, I'm with you. I'm not saying my examples are perfect, and I don't want you to feel attacked, but I do want you to recognize that when we take our realm out of the accidental, what we have to say is those Black Lives Matter protesters stood on that road and said, "Look, if there's a kid in an emergency who needs her medical treatment, we are here to stop her from getting it."
That's not the same thing.
And we are aware of the statistical probability that 4 or 5 people at this airport will be in emergency situations, will need help, and we do not care. We put our lives above theirs.
No, it's not necessary for that to happen in order for it to be intentional. Because the analogy you drew was something along the lines of the Black Lives Matter people go up, they disturb Bernie, and then a riot breaks out. That riot was not intentional. If the riot happens to kill someone and them going up on stage was resulted in a riot starting, they can always go, we just wanted to be disruptive. We had no idea it would start a riot. But when you hold hands and block thousands of people from entering an airport, you are intentionally blocking everyone from going where they need to go. That is your intention. That would be the same as the Black Lives Matter people directly starting the riot on purpose and then people dying as a result. That's apples to apples, Eli.
Could they have gotten attention another way that didn't disrupt?
Well, that's what I'm trying to get at. I'm fine even with disruption. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with the protest, especially at the police departments. The people who are actually doing the killing from those police departments in those cities, who have policies that are leaning against African Americans, have drug laws that disproportionately affect black men. Absolutely go there and protest, because
those work.
I'm not saying that they don't work. I'm not saying that they do. I'm saying that do that. But when you go out and block an entire section of an airport, to me, you're now saying that your life is more important than anything else going on. And I don't think that makes me racist one bit. I would say
I don't think you're racist. I want to say that. I think racist gets thrown around too much. I think we disagree. And I would say that, we're talking about different tactics and we're talking about different perspectives. But if anyone who listens to you says David is racist because of X, Y, or Z, I would disagree with them. And I think I have evidence to back up my claims about why that is not a racist point of view.
Alex, do you think the Million Man March was effective in D.C.?
Yeah, I do.
Did that block anyone?
Did that block anyone?
Did that stop any airports?
Of course, it stopped a tremendous amount of traffic.
I don't know that it did.
It did.
It stopped a tremendous amount of traffic.
And it also wasn't about talking to Washington. It was about talking to each other. So that was very different. Now, when we start looking at guerrilla tactics or true civil disobedience, which this was, I think it was extremely effective.
Now, let me say a few things, because I know anytime we have these discussions, people just like to listen for buzzwords to see which side are you on, which side is Smalley on, and let's just back up, because this isn't a black and white issue, and I say that on purpose. It's not you're either A or B. It's not one or the other, because as I've said multiple times, I'm fine with civil disobedience. I'm absolutely fine with that. In a way, in a mild way, an atheist should run for office, even though it may technically be against the law on the books. Do it anyway to prove that the law is ridiculous. I am fine with that. I am fine with some levels, and yes, I said some levels, Eli. I know you hate that. I'm fine with some levels of disruption. But when you go to the mass levels of blocking an entire airport or shutting down an entire freeway for hours on end, you are now reaching this is the last time I'm saying this, but you're now reaching over the bounds of equality. You're reaching over the bounds of discrimination. The statistical probability states that you are negatively affecting a lot of people who already agree with you. You are now making yourself appear to the general public as a bully, not as an activist, and you're crossing a line. So David, all I'm saying is find a way, protest. I am with you. I want to get rid of institutionalized racism. I want to change the laws. I hate the war on drugs. I think that Reagan and the Clintons, that's big part of the reason why I started leaning towards Bernie instead of Hillary, because of what the Clintons did, which put us in the situation we're in on the war on drugs, as well as Reagan. I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with privatized prisons. There are a million things that we could talk about and agree on 100%. I'm talking about those few instances where the Black Lives Matter activists have gone too far, and shutting down an entire freeway, shutting down an entire airport. You are negatively affecting thousands of people who support what you're doing.
David, I don't know that to be true. I do not know that to be true.
A, we don't know that to be true. And B, David, the problem is you have drawn a line at XYZ. But if I were to turn around and say that protest at the police station stopped police from getting to people who were the victims of crimes, and they knew that this needed to be taken care of, that the Million Man March stopped, 25 blocks of traffic or however many blocks of traffic it stopped, and stopped emergencies at the time, that sit-ins at diners stopped people from this, that, and the other. There's always going to be a line where we say, and when I use the term, you need to ask nicely and tone policing, that's what I'm talking about. When we draw these lines, and look, I'm not talking about violent revolution. That's a totally different subject. But when we draw these lines where we go, well, this is where I draw my line, what stops someone from going, well, that thing at the police station? Or how many people, and look, you can look back at my Facebook, I was furious. Someone changed my mind. I feel differently now. I was furious when they interrupted Bernie. I was like, look, you've got a crowd full of people on your side, and you've done nothing but make the movement look silly. And I was wrong. I was wrong because I was tone policing. There's always going to be the argument that X is too far, whether it's because of physical danger or just because it makes people disenfranchised with the movement, or they don't like the tone, or they decide that you're thugs or whatever it is, there's always going to be a reason why X piece of protesting is too far.
Coming up next, we're going to talk about atheism and feminism. We've extended a little bit beyond where we're supposed to go in the 90-minute program, only because, well, we like to talk a lot. We're going to touch on the atheism and feminism stuff right before we go in to the extended show. More Dogma Debate coming up.
Download Dogma Debate with no commercials by signing up at login.dogmadebate.com.
Human civilization began by putting purpose and intelligent purpose behind gods associated with the sun, the moon, the planets, the wind, the earth, the oceans. It's been, by one estimate, over 1,000 different gods throughout human history. Mars, god of war, Poseidon, Thor, all the rest. And the really important thing is that all of you, or almost all of you probably, are now atheists regarding those gods. Just the only difference is there's just one that we may disagree about. But 999, we all agree, have been thrown out. And the reason they've been thrown out is they've been buried by the rise of our physical understanding. Science works. And the fact that science works has buried the gods of the wind and the sun and the moon. Farmers now, as I was just saying, when it doesn't rain, they don't pray for rain anymore. They go see a meteorologist. And that's a good thing. In the process, the human condition has improved immensely, and it will continue to improve as science continues to bury the one remaining God. Now, this one God is supposedly left. We might ask a priori or in advance, how likely is in advance that all those other 999 gods were false, but this one's true? Well, you might argue, if you had a flat prior, that it's probably pretty small likelihood. But it doesn't really matter. The point is that our current understanding of nature has changed. We've learned things. It's changed and developed since the claims were made by Iron Age peasants who didn't even know the Earth orbited the sun.
Here's an excerpt from Powerless No Longer by Peter W. Soderman.
One night in late August 1990, I was sitting in my living room continuing a normal evening of drinking after the mosquitoes drove me inside. I was making up stories in my head about adventures that would never happen when my 15-year-old daughter appeared out of nowhere. She stood 10 feet in front of me, fiddling with a piece of paper in her hand. "Dad," she said with a tremor in her voice, "what did you think of the poem I read for you on the deck? You said you wanted to think about it for a while." "What poem?" I couldn't remember even seeing her earlier, let alone any poem. Thrusting the paper towards me, she said, "This poem, Dad. I've been working on it for days." I looked towards the floor and muttered something, hoping it was appropriate. I can't remember what I said. When our eyes met, I watched her expression change from hurt to anger, then from anger to disgust. I saw myself reflected in her eyes as we both realized at the same instant that I was a complete fraud. She crumpled the paper into a ball and tossed it onto the rug. Her hair swirled as she spun on her heel and ran from the room. I forgot the poem, but I still remember her sobs. I looked around the room as if seeing it for the first time and realized this was coming to an end, and damn soon. We were living off sales from 2 years ago, and the pipeline was empty. I was a liar, a cheat, and a phony, and one of the few around me who didn't realize it. If the world would stop, I thought, I could get myself together and begin to make things right. I tried hard not to drink anymore that evening, but the glass magically continued to fill itself. When the pendulum clock on the wall bonged 1 a.m., I stumbled up the stairs, undressed, and fell into bed. As the room began to spin, I felt absolute panic. I knew I couldn't face life without alcohol to kill the pain. Yet, I knew I would die if I continued to drink.
Powerless No Longer, Reprogramming Your Addictive Behavior by Peter W. Soderman is now available at atheistaudiobooks.com.
If you've been missing Dogma Debate, man, it sucks to be you.
I'm not very good at singing songs, but here's a try. an apple pie from scratch. You must first invent the universe. Space is filled with a network of wormholes. You might emerge somewhere else in space, somewhere else in time. The sky calls to us. If we do not destroy ourselves, we will one day venture to the stars. A still more glorious dawn awaits, not a sunrise, but a galaxy rise. A morning filled with 400 billion suns. The rising of the Milky Way. Cosmos is full beyond measure.
Welcome back to Dogma Debate. For those interested, that is the Symphony of Science. You should go look that up. Brilliance. Yes, we do have permission to play it, by the way. Here's what we need to do. If the show goes on too much longer, it's going to be rejected by iHeartRadio, okay? So we can't allow that to happen. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play this clip of a young woman talking about why she's not a feminist. and what? Wow. Oh, that was the wrong wow. Sorry. I'm going to play this clip, and then we've got to go to the extended show to talk about it because if we're going to get rejected from iHeartRadio,
you mean you're going to pull the pin and run?
Well, you don't
I'm going to. I mean, I have to.
Yeah, I know.
I want them to hear this in the show, but we're really coming up on that limit.
Let's take it. Yeah,
I've got to go. So it's a very short clip. I'm going to play it. We're going to discuss this in the extended show. Join us at login.dogmadebate.com to hear the full uninterrupted show. And you can actually, if you log in right now and join us, you can actually watch streaming video from inside the studio. The woman's name, you may have heard it. You may have seen this on Facebook already. Her name is Lauren Southern. And I'm not saying I agree with her. I'm not saying I disagree with her. I'm saying this needs to be talked about. And we're going to address it on the other side. So here is Lauren Southern about why she is not a feminist.
Hello, my name is Lauren. A few years ago, I uploaded this photo of myself holding a sign saying, "I don't need feminism because I believe in equality, not entitlements and supremacy." To my surprise, the photo was shared all over the internet, from BuzzFeed and even on Time magazine. I got a lot of support for the photo, but I also got a lot of hate and criticism. Most of that criticism from feminists who claimed I did not know what the word feminism means because feminism is actually a movement for equality. So today I wanted to speak to those feminists and explain why I'm still not a feminist and why third wave feminism is not in fact a movement for equality. I want to start by asking a question. If feminism is a movement for equality, why do we not see equal representation of both genders' issues? And why do we not see feminists complaining about benefits that women have over men in certain situations? I bet very few people watching this video right now know that around 100,000 to 140,000 males are raped annually in U.S. prisons. This is more males raped than females in the U.S. annually, yet feminists remain silent on the issue. Almost half the domestic abuse victims in the U.S. and Canada are men. Yet there are no safe houses for them, no court advocacy programs, no subsidized counseling or legal care like women. Despite being half the victims, they are basically ignored. Men make up 80% of suicide victims, 92% of workplace deaths, 97% of combat deaths, and 77% of homicide victims. Men are objectified, men are raped, men are mistreated. Men are held to ridiculously high societal standards, just like women. Yet feminists continue to place this blanket judgment over all men that they are all privileged, and all women that they are all oppressed. Yet, as a woman, I will almost always win custody of children in a divorce case. I will receive less than half the sentence a man does for the exact same crime, and actually have my rape and assault accusations taken seriously, and I won't be laughed at for not being manly enough. With one quick Google search, I can find a safe house in my area if I have been in an abusive relationship. As a woman, I am more likely to get a government or military job, despite qualifications, just to fill a quota due to affirmative action. And I am also more likely to get into a university because of my gender. So if feminism really were a movement for equality, you would see feminists rioting about the 140,000 men raped. You would see them questioning the fact that women get less than half the prison sentence a man does for the exact same crime. Yet, we do not see equal representation of men's and women's issues. Despite popular belief, feminism is not, in fact, a synonym for equality. I'm not trying to say that men have more issues than women. My point is that both genders have issues, and to argue that feminism is a movement for equality and doesn't just represent one gender's issues is quite frankly ridiculous. So this is why I'm not a feminist. I'm not a feminist because I believe that both genders should be treated equally and both their issues should be addressed. I'm not a feminist because I believe I should prove that I am worthy of a job rather than having it given to me to fill a quota. I'm not a feminist because feminists are unintentionally creating a world of reverse sexism that I don't want to be a part of. So I will stick to promoting equality and justice rather than a faux form of equality under the label of a gender-biased word, feminism.
Ooh, some pretty deep stuff there. She's caught a lot of flack for that, and understandably so. She brought up some interesting points, and I think there are some misunderstandings in what she had to say as well. So whenever I talked with Eli yesterday and found out what we were going to be talking about, because I just planned this show, just pull it directly out of my ass every opportunity I can, he brought up a couple of issues. He brought up a couple of tweets from individuals, and he mentioned several names of a lot of people who have kind of put out this different vibe that he kind of disagreed with. And one of those was Pete Boghossian, who we've had on the show several times. So I called Pete, and I was like, hey, this tweet that's been brought to my attention does sound a little insensitive. Can you break it down for me? Let me know what's going on. And he did, and we talked about it. We talked about this idea that he rejects a rape culture, that he denies a rape culture exists. He flat out said that's not true. He does acknowledge a rape culture. His tweet said something along the lines of it. It's a shame that we manufacture a rape culture where none exists, and while ignoring an actual rape culture. And I got to tell you, surprisingly to most people, talking with Pete, he repeatedly said how much he is against violence against women, how much he is against it. The issue is he looks at things like the Yazidi women who are captured by ISIS and literally sold in slave auctions off to people as sex slaves. He wants to talk about that. And what he's saying is, why isn't the secular community protesting and up in arms about this? Instead, you're talking about one guy who you think might have done something wrong, and this becomes the issue instead of factual evidence of women literally being sold into slavery. So that's where we're talking about, that his focus is just on something different. So I don't want to label anybody as good or bad or on one side or the other. In the end, we're all into this together, and I really want us to be able to stick together in it. And so I want to talk about this, feminism, about rape culture, about conventions. Are they safe zones for women to go, for men to ask women out? I wrote a couple of articles. One was about women and their treatment at atheist conventions. I had Greta Christina in studio. Ashley Paramore called in and weighed in on it. We had the whole discussion. I wrote a blog about it. Eli Bosnik read that, said he had some concerns about what I said in that, as well as my article titled 5 Warning Signs That Social Justice May Be Your New Religion. Go look up both of those, find those. We're gonna read those in this happy section of the show here, and we're gonna.
That was a Jules sigh. If y'all didn't hear it.
No, you can't steal my sigh, man. You can't steal my sigh.
But
look,
sexier.
if we don't get out of here, we're gonna be cut off from iHeartRadio, and they actually pay the bills. So we're gonna get out of here. We're going over to the other side. Join us at login.dogmadebate.com. We're gonna review that video. We're gonna talk about feminism and atheism. We're also gonna get into Dawkins' recent tweet where he sent out this video. And I have audio of the video, so we can listen to that and see. It actually got him uninvited from a popular science conference, as well as transphobia, the nature of satire, online culture of disagreement. Why can't more people do what we're doing right now and still love one another? We have so much more to come. Join us at login.dogmadebate.com. We'll see you on the other side.
Here's an excerpt from Our Constitution, The Way It Was, by Dr. Madeleine O'Hare.
Seemingly, no one knew just what to do. There was no clear-cut program. Some wanted to try to continue to negotiate with the British government. Others wanted to continue the armed revolt in the hopes of forcing the king and Parliament to remedy their grievances. There was no one, apparently, who had the vision to call for complete severance of all political ties with Britain and to found a new nation. The situation remained stalemated until the end of the year. Then, in January 1775, Thomas Paine's pamphlet, Common Sense, came off the press. It was like a fresh wind clearing away a fog. In the simple yet forceful language that characterizes all his writings, Paine showed the absurdity of continuing a relationship.
Hold on. We have a breaking news here. So for those people who just turned off the show, man, I feel bad for you guys. I feel really bad for you. Here's what happened. There was a pastor the other day who made this post on Facebook. I want you to hear this. Oh, stop playing. Okay, here it is.
Hey guys, Pastor Greg Locke here. I want to get right to the point with you. I want to offer you a challenge. You know, I get a lot of messages every single day from people who say the Bible is filled with contradictions. Well, I beg to differ, ladies and gentlemen, because this is the infallible, inspired, authoritative Word of Almighty God. 791,328 words, and every single one of them are from God. You see, this isn't the thoughts of God, it's the very words of God. Now, there may be some things in there that we have to dig a little deeper to get a better understanding, but there are no problematic contradictions. There are no errors in the Word of God. And to prove that, here's what I want you to do. I challenge any atheist, any agnostic, any scientist, any evolutionist, any skeptic, any doubter, anybody that's willing to take the challenge seriously. You're going to see an email that's going to pop up right here. I want you to email that address, and here's what I want you to do. I want you to actually set up some sort of debate between you and I.
Challenge accepted. This video has 97,000 views. I've emailed Pastor Locke. He responded and has confirmed he will be on Dogma Debate.
Yes.
He will be on Dogma Debate.
When?
The plan is next week.
He's going to show?
He says he's going to show.
Oh, man.
He says he's going to show.
I'm so excited.
The chat room's going crazy. They're so excited.
We got to go.
We got to go. Okay. A mother country. Why, he asked, should the colonies, already peopled with 3 million inhabitants and destined to expand to cover a vast continent, be ruled from a small island 3,000 miles away? Why continue to be subjects of a tyrant king when the way was open to be citizens of a free republic? This pamphlet spread like wildfire. The small presses of the time could not keep up with the demand. Hundreds of thousands of copies were issued and penetrated to every colony in a short time. Paine's arguments were unanswerable. They left no middle ground. All talk of compromise and further petitions to Parliament died out.
Find this audiobook and many more at atheistaudiobooks.com.
This is Phil Ferguson with Polaris Financial Planning, the home of science-based investing. I see people owning really bad investments all of the time. Many advisors are paid a commission by a big company to sell you something you may not need. It's kind of like church. They create fear, then they tell you what you want to hear, and then they take your money. What you want is an advisor that is paid only by you. That is a fee-only fiduciary advisor. Remember, people work for who they are paid by. You can contact me, Phil, at PolarisFinancialPlanning.com, or listen to the cleverly titled The Phil Ferguson Show. Each show, we have an interesting investing skeptically topic and an interview with someone fighting to end religion. Polaris also gives 10% of gross revenue to support the growing secular movement. You're not just getting better investments, you're helping to change the world.
Hey, fourth listener, get your behind-the-scenes access, peek into the studio, and even get special contact info all by signing up at login.dogmadebate.com.